chapter 18 really present for us a powerful story and also a great epic event. One of the most powerful stories in all of the Bible, I think. At least that's my opinion. I know you all have your favorites and your descriptors and that kind of stuff. But this one really puts in perspective for me a lot of what we're up against and also a lot of what we have in our favor when we are God's called people. So I'm going to read a few verses of that, just a portion of what was read earlier. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions?" How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if it Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing. Turn to somebody and ask them, how long will you waver?
How long will you waver?
You really believe God? Stop messing around and follow. Just tell them like you meant it. If you really believe God, just stop messing around with all that other stuff. Amen. Praise the Lord. Across my entire life, I've met throw the rock and hide your hand types. Some of y'all know what I'm talking. You know, people who would do dirt, then claim some innocence. I didn't have anything to do with it. Amen. So in my house, Mama was always asking who did one thing or another. Who tracked mud in my house? Who hit me? Literally me. I was the youngest in the house. Who left the refrigerator open? Whatever the question, most of my brothers, me included, will respond, I don't know. If push came to shove, then he did it. Amen. All of us did the same thing. In school, boys claim innocent to touching inappropriately or shoving girls. Politicians claiming I know y'all don't know nothing about that, right? Okay. Politicians claim that they had nothing to do with dismantling the public education system. They had nothing to do with contributing to the school-to-prison pipeline, nothing to do with destroying and separating immigrant families, accepting bribes from corporate tycoons, selling out the public. God's people selling out to fill their pockets with cash, bolster their public prestige, or out of some fear that God will not or cannot come through. I've met people who have done their dirt. I know y'all have never met anybody like that. Who betrayed their principles, who betrayed their conscience, God and their next door neighbor, and when confronted, have held up their hands saying, I didn't do it. I know I'm the only one that really did it. I've met people who have thrown the proverbial rocks, and at times, the real rock. I've thrown a few real rocks in my hand at my time, and hid their hands, many, including me. This story in the Bible, one of the most exciting, adrenaline-generating stories in the entire text of the Bible, compels us to stop hiding our hand. It calls us to boldly proclaim who we are and whose side we're on. Are you going to stand with God? Serve him faithfully because you believe that he is able to protect, to deliver, to provide, to heal, to emerge victorious over every force? Do you believe God is God and has the answer to every challenge, problem, and opportunity? Is God God? That's the real question. Or is there some other force in the universe that reigns supreme? This story calls us out to shout our choice from the literal mountaintop. The scene for this great thriller is on top of Mount Carmel, and everyone has been called to take their prospective places in this great contest. The then king of Israel, of whom it was said, had done more evil than any of his predecessors, including his wicked father Omri. King Ahab had led God's people farther away from God when his job as king of Israel was to lead people closer to God. Reminds me a little of one Donald Trump, when on the campaign trail, vowed allegiance to God with his mouth, but has demonized an entire people, built his administration with people who oppose avenues of help for the masses, dismantles public education, increased world hostilities. He claimed he serves God, but his actions oppose godliness. King Ahab showed up on the mountaintop. Elijah, who had trusted God to provide for him for 3 years while there was a drought in the land, when there was trouble in the land, Elijah, God's prophet, was there. The people were there, people that God had brought through tough times before, people God had brought out of slavery, people that God had given land to, people who had faced impossible odds, and still God gave them victory. But those same people had lost faith in God's ability to provide. So they were wavering. The people were there. And also the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, they were all assembled on top of Mount Carmel to take part in an epic contest of good over evil. God over the enemies of God. The demand, whoever you choose for the entire kingdom to see. Choose for the entire world to see. Choose boldly. Tell your neighbor, whatever choice you're going to make, choose boldly. Don't hide. Don't try to deceive anybody. Whatever you believe in, stand tall and show everybody that you believe in whatever you believe, whatever you claim, whatever sets you with. Let everybody know who you are. Let everybody know. When I was in Israel, I visited Mount Carmel, the Mount Carmel mountain range. On top there is a statue erected in memory of this great battle. It is a statue of Elijah. He has a spear drawn like he's ready for warfare. As I stood on Mount Carmel, I noticed that it was surrounded by valleys. You could look down in any directions, and you could see for miles anywhere that you could look. There was valleys all over that had a direct view to the top of the mountain. From anywhere and everywhere, up there you had a clear view of everything for miles in either direction. Even on a hazy day as it was when I was there, you could still see for miles anywhere you looked. People from Egypt used one of the valleys as a major passageway so anyone traveling could see it. People frequently traveled in that direction. So not only could people live there see, but frequently somebody traveling could see what was going on top of Mount Carmel. It became apparent to me why God and Elijah chose Mount Carmel as the place to display God's sovereignty to the world and to call on his people to stand up for God. There was no hiding on Mount Carmel. Tell somebody you can't hide. Yeah. What happened on Mount Carmel, on the top of Mount Carmel, was in bold view of everyone miles around. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, we think we're hiding, but the truth is, most people see what you're doing. Sometimes you think you've taken every precaution to make sure nobody knows your dirt. They're not telling, but they know. They see you. Your actions are frequently displayed as if you were on top of the mountain. Whatever happened on top of Carmel was in bold view of everyone for miles around. Sometimes even strangers who know nothing about God know what you're doing. God wanted it to be clear who really had power, and he wanted it to be clear who was standing with him and who was standing with evil intentions in their heart. Whatever we do, God wants us to choose him and his principles boldly, not so that we can look foolish, but so that he can show everybody that he's able to do anything but faith. That he has power over earth and heaven, politics and power, money and madness. God wants everybody to know that he can do everything we need him to do. He can do the impossible, because what is impossible with man, with us, is indeed a cakewalk with God. Y'all know what a cakewalk is, right? We used to use that expression. I know you young people don't know anything about cakewalks, but we use that expression to say the easiest thing that you can imagine, that's what a cakewalk is. So the toughest thing with us is still a cakewalk with God. Elijah chose a God-sized thriller to determine who was really God. God's people have been putting their trust in everything but God. I wonder if you can find yourself in that place now. Palm reader type people to predict their future, they've been trusting in them. Shrine prostitutes to make crops fertile, they've been trusting in them. Even sacrificing children to false gods to earn favor for the future. And I know you're saying, I never sacrifice my children. I say to you, some of y'all are lying.
That's right.
I know you probably haven't literally killed them since you're not in prison right now, but some of you have stolen from your children in pursuit of your own dreams. You failed to lay up for them a heritage because you wanted something of your own. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, we are as bad as the people that we complain about. Sometimes we make the same mistake that we think are unforgivable, but brothers and sisters, what God wants us to understand is nothing is unforgivable for Him. That His sacrifice are for all of us. Even those that we think the worst of, God sacrificed so that they could have a way back to Him. He sacrificed for every one of us because none of us are worthy. He alone is worthy. He alone has redemption. He alone has power to save and to secure. He alone is able to restore and to redeem us. Elijah gave them a choice. He gave them a chance to choose before the victor was determined. You know, some of us bet on everything. Some of you right now betting on who's going to win the NBA Finals. I mean, you already put your pick in, and some of you have put your money down. Amen? Some of you have betting on who lose. We bet on some of everything. We've already placed our bets. Well, the Lord wants to know if we place our bet on Him. On our confidence and conviction that He alone is really the Lord of our lives and the Lord of the world. I hear people talking about playing it safe. They get a little Christianity over here. They get a little Buddha over here. They get a little Islam over here. They get a little spirituality, a little bit of everything. And yes, I have worked with some of everybody who claims some of everything. I've worked with them. But make no mistake, I know who my Redeemer is. Make no mistake, I have no bones about claiming Jesus as Lord, as King, as the supreme of everything. There is no other God than God. He has no rival. There's no competition because He alone stands. But He's wondering if we're willing to place our bet on Him. You know why it's okay to bet on God? I know we hear the stuff about you shouldn't gamble. You know why it's okay to bet on God? God ain't a gambler. He is not a gamble. There's no competition. We believe that He alone, and I am assured when I look over my life and yours too, that He alone is God. That's not a bet, brothers and sisters. That's certainty because of what God has done and who He demonstrates that He is every day of our life. Amen. This God-sized thriller that Elijah chose, he chose an animal to sacrifice for him and for one of the prophets of Baal. The false god would choose to sacrifice, dress it, and lay it on the altar. Whichever god answered by fire, Elijah said, that indeed is God. Some of you know the story. The prophets of Baal called on Baal from morning till evening. If you lose the count, there was about 850 of them. But there was no answer. Now, I see some of y'all do this, when you're talking about stats and football or whatever your game is, and you have a little confidence and you start bragging a little bit. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You start messing with people about what their team is and they don't have any chance. You start talking a little stuff. So actually Elijah started talking some mess. Well, he said, call on him a little bit longer. Y'all know how y'all do. You don't really need it. You don't really think they have it in the bag that they can come back from 40 points down. You just want to mess with the opposing side. Oh yeah, I know your boy gonna step up in the third quarter. That's when he gets his thing going. You know how? That's what Elijah started doing. When you have confidence with people. When you have confidence about the Lord has spoken and He's going to come through and you have no doubt, you're certain it's not just you that you're bragging about, it's what you're sure that God has said. You can mess with anybody who walks in the room.
That's right.
Because you know God's going to have the last word. And probably the worst, one of the worst insults that he said is maybe he's busy. Really what he said is maybe he's in the bathroom and leaving a little time to leave himself. He was messing with them because he knew that God was real. That's confidence in what God has said, what He's done in our past, and our conviction that because God came through for me before, God came through for His people before, He's going to come through again, no matter how many problems I'm currently facing. God's still God. He doesn't need my goodness. The only thing He needs is His faithfulness to come through for me. So God kept messing with me. From morning till evening, till their time was up, and then it came time for him to show his faith, to show just how much he believed in God, how much he was sure that God would come through. And so what he did to demonstrate his confidence and conviction about God is he called all of the people to do something that made absolutely no sense at all. He told them to dig a trench around the sacrifice. Well, let me start back up a little bit and say before he did any of that, what he did is he restored his worship and the worship of the community in faith with God. So he rebuilt the altar. Brothers and sisters, sometimes we need to rebuild our places of worship because when we look at ourselves that we failed in the past. That we've fallen short of what God believes and what He expects of us. And so we need to rebuild our lives of faith. We need to rebuild our places of worship. But we don't do that by ourselves. We've been fed a line, brothers and sisters, about us and our faithfulness is not perfect. It's not about us and our faithfulness is not perfect. It's about God and His faithfulness and how forgiving and how redeeming He is. So sometimes when we think we stand alone, that we're the best, we're the only ones that have been faithful, we need to slap ourselves and remember that the only reason we are where we are is because God is who God is. So here's what he did. Before he got to all of the other stuff, he called the people who had been unfaithful, who had done everything that they shouldn't have done, but they were still God's people. So he called them to stand with him in worship and worship the Lord together so that God could come and take his rightful place on the heart of even, those who were in need of forgiveness. Those who was in need of restoration and redemption. Those who were in community with God, regardless of where they were and where they had been. He restored their faith and he restored their connection to God. Then he did what else that didn't make any sense. He had them dig a trench around all of the sacrifices. And then dump water all over everything. And the reason for the trench is so that they could see how much water was dumped all over everything. And the deep trench, which was flooded over with water, and then he did something else. He let everybody know who he was trusting in. So remember, he was on a mountaintop. And he loudly prayed to an eternal God to hear him. He loudly proclaimed to everybody around who his trust was in. It was not in himself. Amen. You know what some of us do? When we get up in front of people, we want everybody to know how good we've been. How faithful we've been. How hard we've worked. How we're the only ones and the only reason that the church is doing as well as it's doing. That our family is doing as well as it's doing. Elijah did none of that. You know what he said? I want everybody around here to know that the only reason I'm doing anything is because you told me to do it. we look to ourselves as a reason for strength, for power, for ability, for faithfulness, we're looking in the wrong direction. We are. I mean, I know as human beings, we love self-reliance. And what we sometimes tell ourselves is, as long as everything is in my hands, we're all right. Because I actually know what I'm doing. And sometimes we believe it. I mean, sometimes we're convinced that as long as I keep everything in my hands, we are going to be okay. No, brothers and sisters, as long as we keep everything in God's hands.
That's right.
As long as our trust and our faith and confidence is in God's hand, we're okay. Because here's the truth. If you keep reading past chapter 18, you find out that after Elijah had done some amazing things, he started running scared. We are all subject to failure. At times we have the utmost confidence in God and our faith in God is sure, but there are some battles that we face that we are not at a maturity level to completely turn over into the hands of God. And you know what God says that's okay? Because we keep talking to Him. Because we keep allowing Him to work in our life to get us over that next hump. As long as we put everything in God's hand, we're in good shape. Whenever we rely on ourselves, brothers and sisters, this moment we might be okay, but the next moment we might fall just a little short, and a little short is too short. Worst thing I want us to say is we almost made it. Y'all know what we almost made it mean, don't you? Almost as bad as we were so far away. Both of them are equally disastrous. If we almost made it over the hump, over the valley, we did not make it. God always knows the way. God is always our safety net. God always comes through. He always knows what we need in the time of our need. Not 5 minutes later, but right then. He knows exactly what we need. And He delivers. He comes through. He redeems. He restores. God reconnects with us. Dousing with all of that water and all of that time. What Elijah was certain of is that God meant what He said. Do we know the same thing? That God means what He says. Sometimes our rationalization gets in the way, and if I do all of that, God ain't going to come through. That makes it a little bit too difficult for God to do. If I douse something with water, then fire is going to be a little bit harder to start. But what we're leaving out of the equation is that God is God. What we're leaving out of the equation is that since God created the water, He can make water do whatever He wants water to do. I know naturally when we look at water, the thing that it does, it makes it harder for fire to get started. But if God changes the nature of the water, instead of cooling the fire off, it all of a sudden becomes an accelerant. Because since God created it, He can change His intentions anytime He wants to. It's all about whether we trust Him or not. God answered by fire. When we get God an opportunity, brothers and sisters, He will destroy all of the things that are in our way. Every obstacle that is preventing us from advancing. Everything that has held us down, whether it's of our own making or the making of someone else, God is able to move all obstacles, all the enemies out of our way, not so that me personally can be justified, but God cares about all of His people. He cares about everybody that we're connected with and those that are not connected with us. God cares about everybody who needs redemption, who are in need of restoration, who think that they failed one too many times and there's no way back. God wants them to know that there's always a way back. He's always standing ready to bring us back from the brink of failure and to restore our faith and to redeem our purposes in Him. He's not only ready, God is willing and able to stand with us. You know what the only question is? Are we willing to stand with him? Are we willing to bet on God and God alone? Don't have that extra bank account that your mother and father told you to keep just in case. Don't go to those different places because you think somebody might have some truth over there that God may not know anything about. Believe in the one who has brought you this far, and he did not bring us this far to leave us. He didn't make a way out of no way in impossible situations in the past just to demonstrate that he could only do it one time. Hello, somebody.
Amen.
Amen. He didn't call us to stand with him and then faithfully say, I commit to stand with everybody who calls on the name of the Lord. Whatever we're facing, brothers and sisters. Whatever our moments, God wants us to choose him boldly, wherever we are, whether we're in our household. God wants us to choose him boldly. And I know what you're telling me is that sometimes, it's easy. That's the easiest place to claim God is in the household. I want to stand, I can't look at your house, I can just look at mine. Sometimes that ain't easy. Sometimes that's challenging, it's hard, it's difficult to stand for God in my own surroundings. Stand with him in your family. And I know what you tell me that. That's easy too. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, it's not easy to stand with God in your family, among people who know you. People who in your face might say good things, might say bad things, might be with you, might be against you. Amen. Don't you love your brother and sister? Well, you should do X, Y, Z for me. I know y'all never heard that kind of thing. Sometimes it's challenging to stand with God on your job. But God says stand. Choose him boldly. Wherever we are. Claim his name. And then God will get us through our obstacles. And show everybody who's really God. Choosing him, brothers and sisters, is not just about faith in church. Choosing him boldly is also about choosing to stand with God no matter who says what and no matter who's doing this, that, and the third. So in politics, it means choosing God boldly. You ask me, what do I mean? Well, brothers and sisters, let me just say this. Sometimes we think we're off the hook because we're not the current targets. So we look at what our president is doing to Latinos and to Arabs. And we say, because that's not me, what I got to do with them? I know we say it. We ain't the first ones who said it. People have said it in history. That's why Germany got where it was. Because people kept looking and saying, that's not me, so I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm going to mind my own business. Brothers and sisters, God intends for us to stand for him no matter whether we're the target or somebody else is the target. If evil is raising its head, if ungodliness is raising its head, as God's people, we must stand for God no matter who's currently in trouble. Because here's the secret that's not really a secret. Today it might be somebody else, but tomorrow, rest assured, it's going to be us. God wants us to stand for him. He wants us to stand for his truth. He wants to stand on his word to ensure that we are his people. We hear his voice. The people's side that we're on is God. The world, brothers and sisters, needs us to stand for him in this building and outside of this building. When it's our issue around education of African American boys and girls who are failing at an alarming rate, or whether it's the immigration issue where Trump and others are treating people inhumanely, or whether it's the corporate issue of increasingly corporate is taking more and more control and more rights away from people. Whether it's the democracy issue and whether democracy is dwindling down more and more, and decreasingly more people are having less to say about the state of our world. God needs us, and the world needs us. The only question is, will we stand boldly? Martin E. Muller has a quote that is in the Holocaust Museum, I think both in Israel as well as in D.C. It reads as follows. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. When we stand for God, brothers and sisters, we stand together. We refuse to sit idly by watching evil decimate communities around us. We stand up and dismantle evil in all its forms so that good and God can flourish. Amen. The Lord begs us, brothers and sisters, gives us opportunity to stand with Him no matter what. It's not a convenient place, but it is the right place. God is not a one-issue being. I know, we like our favorite things. When this is happening, God is not a one issue. God is the entirety of His Word about good, God's goodness, and God's justice. And God needs His church to stand up. Whether it's about your brother and sister who needs to know the Lord and needs to know faith and needs to know that God can help them in whatever the situation is, or whether it's about someone on the other side of the world who are being oppressed increasingly every day, God wants us to stand for His goodness. The call of us on our faith, brothers and sisters, is to listen and to choose God both. To follow wherever He leads, to never stop, as long as we have breath in our body, to stand and work for the goodness of the Lord. If you're here this morning, brother.